Well, Stephen, it's great to see you again. Been following you from Africa to Austin to New York to Brooklyn to God knows where, all over the place, and it's great to see you again.
Yeah, good. Thanks for reaching out.
No, my pleasure. Welcome to the Leaders Who Care series, and I guess the best way to start, as always, would be if you could, as I tell everybody, briefly introduce yourself, because most people I know love to chat and talk and whatnot about who you are, where you're from, and this and that. Then we'll get into the business stuff a little bit and have a good chat. So go for it.
Sure. Okay, so I'm Stephen Friedbutter. I'm based here in Ithaca, New York. I do have another base in Austin, Texas, and have a life there. My focus lately, in the last few years, has been investing in startup companies, primarily in Africa, and of female and diverse founders. So people who would be non-traditional founders of companies, I've gotten behind them both as an investor, advisor, mentor, both through funds and individually. And so I came back to the US. I'd been living in Costa Rica for 10 years, and I came back and spent I got into this. I had an appointment at Cornell for 3 years, working with their intellectual property, and found it, just more interesting being on the other side, being the money, as opposed to looking for the money. And so after making a few investments, I saw that I kind of have a thing for it. A good sense of people, aside from experience of owning businesses and doing things. The thing I realized is that all of these companies are being led. It's a future of people who are in their 20s and 30s for the most part, who are young. And so just kind of found a place for myself where I seemed to be welcomed in as part of the system of being like, an older person, and often a different gender and from a different background. And
we're not older. We're not older. One of my clients, who's a woman CEO, she says we should call ourselves vintage.
Vintage, yeah. I have experience, and in many settings, aside from the business, there's so many other decisions that end up getting made. And so having somebody who has, I'm 67, I've had lived in different countries, different businesses, relationships, all that kind of stuff. It helps. Most of the people who come to me that I work with are, like I say, are often in 20s and maybe 40, early 40s is sort of the oldest, it seems. So I feel humbled and great that I feel that I'm welcomed into these groups, both from a financial, professional way, and then it often it includes like from a personal way.
So speaking of personal, well, first of all, I know I kind of brought it up when we talked a few minutes before. Well, and the hockey playoffs are on right now. You've been watching them, physically too, with the hockey playoffs.
I've been watching the NBA actually. But we've been watching that more.
Now, I was wondering, did you punch somebody out or somebody punch you out? But you mentioned you might have done it to yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know how that happened. I just woke up and
Well, as we said, it's a badge of honor. So before we go into your journey, Cornell, etc., the typical question, if you may, but tell us what your why is, and basically why do you do what you do?
Yeah, it's a great thing. One thing is, I genuinely love people. and I love business. And so like for my whole life, like I've used like business has often been a lane uh, that I've, connected with people on, and, I've learned and helped other people learn, and, had our stuff. And somehow, for some people, everybody's got like their lane of what, it could be like teaching, but like
Mhm.
business has always been like, it didn't really matter what the business was. It always was some interesting adventure that involved uh, personal trust as well as, a strategy and, getting something done. But the relationships and things that went that go with it. Um, and so yeah, at this point, what it seems like it makes a lot of sense that I actually feel like I have more to share now than I ever did before 65 working. Before then I was like doing stuff, but now I sort of have the reflection and the experience of all of those things I've done, work, travel, love, everything, uh, to be able to actually talk, when you're making decisions, big decisions with people about their lives and about money and about business and about other people. Uh, I feel like I have something to offer.
Well,
Uh,
there is something to be said, and obviously we're in the impact business ourselves, and we work with a lot of different types of talent, about having the experiences internationally with different cultures, different ways of doing business,
yeah,
etc. And as you said, you've called home and traveled to a lot of different places. Is there, you find obviously there's similarities and there's differences in a Costa Rica to an Africa to a Brooklyn, and yet each one has their own contribution or their own
yeah,
flavor. Give us a sense of what's it's like living and working in different countries.
yeah. I mean, each place just has its flow. I think the most important overriding thing, and the thing that's been integral to my success and being welcomed, is I try not to tell people what to do in terms of,
Yeah.
like because I'm the older American guy, uh, I know what's best for you, which isn't the case. Like in each, the way you get something done in Costa Rica is so much less efficient and less direct than in the US, but it has its own way. If you don't do it that way, you insult people, blah, blah, blah. Here, it has other things, that I think that it's like sort of like going to each place and being yourself, and at the same time having respect for where you are, because there are definitely different ways you get close to people, or different ways you build trust with people in a Latin culture, in African culture, in a European culture. Like each one is somehow the combination between something between efficiency and personalness, somewhere between where those things go, and they're different in each place. And if you don't, like in Costa Rica, if you're too direct and businesslike and you're not personal, nice, they don't like it.
Yeah, I know that there's something we could all learn from all the others,
Yeah,
including health and well-being, and not just about working only, which ends
right.
up becoming better, maybe even better for business in that sense. You we met actually through friends of ours, Lucia and Derek of AMP Global, who are doing some amazing work in Africa, and and,
Yeah.
and I believe you've invested in their company as well. Share with us your interest in empowering Africa, as well as what you see the potential of the continent is,
Sure.
in two terms. In terms of they got a lot of value of business resources, but also a lot of value in talent.
Yeah. exactly. So here's the thing. I never really had any intention of investing in Africa. I I met Derek, and of the people who were presenting at this event, I just kind of said, this is a guy I definitely want to get behind, and did, became an investor advisor. And this is going back like 3 years. So we really have, it's so funny because I was just on the phone with Lucia yesterday, and we have good things happening to the company. And they're in Dubai actually, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. But it started by meeting him, and then from meeting Derek and Lucia, the other investors that we ended up getting were African, and I became, like friends with these people, like we became partners.
Mhm.
And it just happened, it was during a pandemic. And so we were on these calls like once a week to people from all over Africa. And, we sort of got to know each other. And then I had opportunities to keep investing. And so it ended up that what started out investing in just women and diverse founders, when I met Derek, ended up shifting to become Africa. And then I think I think the opportunity there, which is with all of the things I'm doing, are just supporting people who have a lack of access to capital, no lack of access to ideas, uh, energy, smarts, and it's just that it's so out of balance, um, in terms of youth, of young, educated, hungry people without filled with opportunities. And so we became the opportunities, investing in these early stage companies. I saw like me and a bunch of my investor friends, it became like a little club. And over the last few years, what was so out there 3 years ago, investing in Derek, 3 years ago, now investing in Africa or investing in diverse founders is not quite so out there anymore. And so I'm happy to feel like, so I started getting invited to do some public speaking, which is funny that even though that you're interviewing me here, that, up until I was over 65, I had never spoken in public before. I never spoke in class in college or anything.
You speak to your mother?
What's that?
Did you speak to your mother?
I was very shy. I was kind of shy. I was very shy. Didn't really speak in class. I mean, I was very, it wasn't that I didn't have thoughts, but I wasn't, I didn't act. I wasn't in a band. I didn't act on a stage. And so it's been very interesting. But in the last few years, I've started doing quite a bit of public speaking about investing in Africa, and, being invited, like not being the initiator of, but people asking me to do it. So
So what do you find there are is the future? What do you see the future there is with respect to the resources and the talent that they have?
Yeah, I think that's, to the extent that that Derek and me and, our investors, and it's like the idea, hopefully, that, we could start 1,000 companies that each hire 1,000 people. That's a future that one of the slogans, one of the groups use, they say, trade versus aid, like kind of all these years of like giving money, thinking it's going to build up the way the world is there, it hasn't. And so this is like an idea of, do you get the best and the brightest and the hungriest to want to have a better life, and that they're going to start companies that solve real. Here's the other thing is, like, in the US, okay, somebody's thinking of the 1,000th way to have a calendar, let's say, or something. But they're just figuring out, how do you pay your bills? How do you deliver healthcare, education? They're not trying to figure out any esoteric things. They're like, so I think the opportunities are incredible. And of course, very similar to Costa Rica, the potential pitfalls are the ones you don't even know that are there, because it's such a more unpredictable place. And so the opportunity to be successful is multiple times, and the opportunities to fail are equally, and that's, I'd say in that way, Africa and Costa Rica and places like that have a lot in common.
Well, you got to be resilient, and you got to
Yeah.
be long term. There's no
Patient,
no doubt about
super
it.
patient, resilient. You got to be, like street smart. You got to be like tough, but you got to be kind. You got to, you got to have eyes in the back of your head, because you have to anticipate things that are not, that you can't imagine are possible outcomes of, things you do. But that's what happens in places like that. Something happens, it's like, that wasn't A, B, or C, but yet I have to deal with it. But at the same time, for me, I'll say, especially in Costa Rica, that I spent 10 years there. I had a lot of success. There was a lot of opportunity sitting there, but you had to figure it out yourself. There was no, and the same in Africa. It's not organized yet. You have to do it. You have to figure out the path.
No, I definitely agree and see that with the dealings we have in Africa too. And although we're definitely looking at it as like incredible opportunity in agriculture and finance and in so many aspects.
Yeah.
And it's taken decades really for leaders of businesses to recognize that business can actually do better, when you're doing good at the same time. You don't have one or the other. And they've also found out, and we've definitely recognized this, that unless they do care, otherwise known as why we have a Leaders Who Care series, recognizing leaders who care, unless they do care, they're not able to attract the very best talent, because the very best people want to both make money and have some purpose at the same time.
That's what I found. I found like there's no reason not to be able to do both. There's no reason not to, make money. Like when I was in Costa Rica and made money, a lot of other people made money also. I was able to bring a lot of other people along, whereas there were people who went there and just, they were there to take what they could for themselves. And, we had it so everybody made out well.
Yeah, the good news is that that you can do good, and that actually brings you better talent, brings you better business dealings, etc. Hey, my grandparents, they were from Kyiv actually, a long time ago. My mom and my aunt and so on, but they would always say something to us with their accent. They said, "As long as you have your health, that's the most important thing." That's what they would say. And considering all the things that we've seen technologically, and then we have COVID, and then racial justice and wildfires, you name it, Mother Nature is not a happy camper right now. Do you see, not only here in the States, but with your experience internationally, that there's been, if you will, some kind of awakening as to what really is important?
Yeah, I think both. I think both are going on at the same time. I think we're getting further away from it looking the way I hope it could be. And yet there's so many people on an individual level who are trying to do good things, but it seems difficult to, it's challenging.
Yeah,
the forces are challenging. I think maybe one way to put it is when I was younger, it felt there was more, the top and the bottom didn't feel like so far away as it is now, where the ultra wealth versus, the people who are really struggling in the world. It just seems like it's not just like, education isn't free. So it's not like you just go to college and then make a lot of money next generation. It's a more complicated world to navigate, I think, financially, to become, but still, as somebody, I think part of my story, my family's story, and part of the people I end up supporting, I think, a lot, are people who have had lost everything at some point and had to do it again. And so,
Well, that's where you really know the value of
yeah,
everything when that happens, for sure.
people whose history. So, as a child of immigrants, and as in Africa, with people who have had that similar experience, different particulars, but that because of their tribe, or whatever, they lost everything and had to start again. And those are the people that I tend to get behind, because I just feel like, I
No,
don't know. I feel like I could feel like they're not going to give up easily, and that they're resourceful, and that it's in them to, if A doesn't work out, they won't give up. They'll find B. And so, I see that. I see that in many of the people that I choose to support have their own story, of being an outsider, sort of,
yeah, and truly entrepreneurs, truly
yeah,
entrepreneurs. Hey,
like,
last question in this part. In fact, one of my clients in 2021, he was describing 2020 to me, and he said, "Mark, 2020, it seems like it flew by slowly." And I
yeah,
thought that was a brilliant line, that it flew by slowly. So with respect to that, and where we are now into 2022, can you tell us what you're most grateful for and what you're most hopeful for?
yeah. It's interesting, that description of the time, because that's how it seemed. It seemed like it just went on indefinitely. The days, like when everything was closed, nothing was going on, and then at the same time, you know, at the end of these like 2 years or whatever, when I saw how many people I knew all over the world, even though I hadn't met them in person, a
Mhm.
lot of them I already were financial partners with, or we had talked on the phone, or we had done something together. We had to get something we were doing together. We spoke at a conference virtually together. And so somehow that time went by, and you think nothing happened. I sat here by myself. But now that I'm out in the world, I know so many people in Africa and Asia, that
That,
feel like they feel like they're my best friend, because we found each other on LinkedIn, and whatever, something happened and we had a conversation, and they invited me here, and but it was all a very different way than before, the
yeah,
last year.
I think. Well, it sounds like that's what you're most grateful for that. And I think we missed being together so much that we tried so much harder to do it on Zoom, that we
Yeah,
really got into relationship on technology like we've never been connected before.
I would have never. I hate technology. I'm like, so not. I'm the kind of person, like, I love to, like, invite me, to an event, and we'll talk, and we'll, eat and hang out. Like, that's how I thought. But then for 2 years, it was like, I'm getting emails, and I'm on WhatsApp, and people are calling me from
Yeah.
Africa in the middle of the night, and it ended up that I created this big life that now has legs to it. It has businesses, and partnerships, and friendships, and all kinds of stuff. So it's I wouldn't have chosen to create it this way, but I guess I'm somebody who is adaptable. I guess I'm one of those people, because even though I'm old and I really didn't want to, I more than most people I know, young or old, I somehow use the time and the technology in a way that was more than expected.
So I would say then you're most hopeful for meeting all the people you connected with on Zoom now in person.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in a way, imagine like just last week from Austin, when you get like 25,000 people plus click on your thing, and then you get a couple hundred emails of people saying, I want to let's meet. And I can't meet all of them, but I was, I've been like pretty hectic, hilarious. Most of them ended up being very fine, interesting.
Of course they are.
They were actually really on the level people, whether they were on one of two fronts, either people who have or manage a lot of other people's money investing in like Africa and wanted to talk about, what they're doing, what I'm doing, and they see that I'm doing stuff, and people who are founders who are looking for support and investors. So, a combination of both sides of those things. And they were all kind of mostly interesting conversations of good, good people. Can't connect with all of them in a serious way, but that's what I've learned about Africa. There's an unlimited amount of people with ideas in Africa that are willing to work to make it work if someone gave them $50,000 or $100,000.
Next time we were talking to the former Prime Minister of Kenya the other day. Next time an election comes up, we'll nominate you to be the president.
Yeah, I'm very popular in, it's funny. Like I say this to people. I've lived in Ithaca for 40 years on and off, and I've gone to, in the interim, been in Costa Rica and been in Austin, but I've had a home in Ithaca for over 40 years. And I feel that I have more people in Africa know me and respect, than in Ithaca. Like, I don't know anybody anymore. From how in this thing, I have people who call from Kenya who say, oh, I heard all about you, and I think you could help me. And I'm cracking up because I in my own hometown, I'm starting to feel very anonymous because it's a very young.
Well, I'm in LA, so we'll conclude by saying the sequel will be from Ithaca to Kenya and beyond. That's
all right. I mean, that's what I have. I'll give you my how I feel now is I think I've been invited to speak in Kigali, Rwanda in June. And so I have a phone call to confirm that, but I think I'll be going to Rwanda and possibly Kampala, Uganda.
Thanks for joining us on the Leaders Who Care series. You're doing amazing stuff all over the place. We're excited about what you're doing in Africa and Austin, and we'll be keeping an eye on you.